Kicked out my pregnant girlfriend after catching her stealing my clothes for her family, and she now denies everything, calling me pathetic. Can't get over that my pregnant girlfriend stole from me. She eventually came round to admitting to being in the wrong, begged for forgiveness and told me it wouldn't happen again. I was reluctant to accept her apology because it took about a week for her to come up with it, but I took it and moved on. What I didn't mention, and probably should have, she's 15 weeks pregnant. Since then, things have been pretty much back to normal. However, Christmas Eve I discovered my clothes and trainers in the wardrobe had been moved around. Not something I'd have done. I knew she'd been wrapping gifts for her family in there, its walk-in wardrobe in the spare room. I know she can struggle for money sometimes, and my first instinct was she'd been going through it to find something to give to her brothers, as most of it still has tags on. The trainers are still boxed too. That night I, wrongly, looked through her FB Messenger and she's taking pictures of my trainers asking her mom if her brothers will fit them because I don't like it. I do like them, I just haven't had chance to wear it. Her reply was, I'll wrap them up then. Also asking if the exact size I am in clothes will fit her brother was on the messages, making me think she's stolen other things. I don't even know half of the clothes I have, so it's pretty hard for me to look and know what's missing, and a lot are with tags on and brand new. I confronted her about it that night, told her exactly what I saw. That my clothes had been moved around and the messages of her taking photos of my trainers. She said her mom was asking what trainers I wore to buy me some. What she didn't expect was me to pull up the screenshots with her reply of saying she's going to start wrapping them and asking them if they'll fit her brother. She then admitted she was going to, but realized it was wrong, and it was, because I confronted her about it. I look at her phone yesterday whilst she's asleep to see if there's any mention of anything that's been taken, and she tells her mom he wants to keep the trainers now with all previous messages deleted. She keeps denying it was because I confronted her that she didn't give them away, and she's denying she's stolen anything else, saying I'm blowing it up into something it isn't and she'd never steal. She says the reason she asked was because she gave a gift intended for me to her brother, but she's refusing to show me the transaction or receipt for that. Tonight, I told her unless I see proof she's bought gifts for her brothers herself, I'm going to presume she's a thief and she's stolen from me. She's adamant she hasn't and that I'm being pathetic, and she'll show me proof, but not when I ask for it and in her own time. That was the last straw for me, so I asked her to pack up and leave. She has somewhere safe to go because she can stop with her family for now. I'm being called dramatic and basically the one who's in the wrong. She's pregnant, and for the sake of the child I've been trying to work things out, but this is the last straw for me. Today she's messaging me that she's cancelled the baby scan to go away and live with her sister. I'm pathetic. She's not lying but can't show me the receipt, and if I'm breaking up with her she's free to do what she wants. She's saying I have no proof despite me seeing the messages. She's also saying she only considered it and stopped herself despite me seeing she'd replied after I confronted her, saying she'll have to give her brother something else because he now wants to keep them. This is the way she acts to most things when she's in the wrong. Manipulation and not accepting fault for days where I'll refuse to speak to her. She is caring and hasn't really given me other reasons not to trust her, but this has broken my trust massively. How can I get over the fact that my trust has been completely broken? Edit. I know everyone is telling me to get a paternity test and I understand why. She's never really given me a reason to suspect she's cheated. It's something I do now. She's broken my trust, and it's something I've said in a heated argument. The problem is she's told me that if I don't believe the baby is mine, she won't consent to a test and she'll stop any access to the baby and my name won't go on the birth certificate. Oop. Yeah, that's the thing. She'd never consent to that. She's told me if I don't trust she's telling the truth it's my baby, then I don't deserve to have it in my life and she'll never let me see it. Oop. You're right, the child is the priority for me, but I want her to admit what she has taken. Otherwise she'll think it'll all just blow over, when from the messages I'm pretty convinced she's taken something. I even had to look at the camera I used for the dog over previous footage. She goes upstairs and comes down with 3 wrapped gifts after being where my stuff is. Even after confronting her she's making out I'm deluded, and after telling her I've seen her already talking about taking her stuff she just keeps saying yeah but I didn't. Long story short, my girlfriend and I have been living together for around 10 months. When she first moved in she insisted on paying rent and I was reluctant to charge her if it didn't work out, but she forced it and paid a month. Then I found out she's struggling for money, unable to pay for things, is in a lot of debt and lives month to month. She agreed with me that she'd start when she clears the debt. Fast forward to Christmas, I find out she's been stealing my clothes to give to her family as gifts. Another post on here. She lied for 2 weeks blaming me until I showed her footage of her taking the things from the camera in the living room to watch the dog when I'm out. I later then discover through letters and texts I've seen appear on her phone she's been doing nothing to pay any of it off, so I confront her. She tells me and shows me messages that her mother and sisters constantly guilt trip her into giving them money and have for years. They'll message her on payday asking for it and she feels bad saying no, despite none of them ever paying it back. Her mum alone owes her over £6,000. She has taken a ton of loans out for her family and they leave her with the debt and don't pay it back. Luckily her credit is now at the point where nobody will loan to her, but she still tries and does it for them. I also find out, I went through her finances, yes I shouldn't have, but something wasn't adding up and I was being lied to, that in the space of 20 minutes she spent £300 on gambling sites. All during this time she isn't paying a penny towards rent, bills, anything. She'll occasionally buy food, shopping or trips out to Starbucks. I tell her enough is enough and she needs to start paying her way. If she can give handouts to her family and gamble, she can pay for where she lives, and she's taken me for a ride when she should have been saving and clearing debts. I make roughly 5x what she does, but I've been fair in that the bills are split proportionally to income. She'll earn £1,400 per month and pays £600, which includes rent and her share of the bills. I take on the rest, which is substantially more, but I believe it's not fair to take more. On the first of this month she tells me she can't pay rent. She says she's paid out too much on our trips to Starbucks, food shopping, and I'll get it when I get it, but she doesn't understand why I need it this month when she's lived for free the past 9 months anyway. I've asked her to explain where her money has exactly gone, but she tells me I'm controlling and it's none of my business. In fairness, she will pay when we go food shopping, but rarely in comparison to me. I've kicked her out as of yesterday and told her she needs to find somewhere to live. She is however pregnant, and she's using that card as a way to guilt trip me and make I've thrown out her and my child onto the streets. In my opinion, she is taking me for a ride and prioritizing her family that is using her over her own family she's started. What's the solution here to getting her to see she's not treating me fairly? ESH. Update 1. Long story short, my girlfriend and I have been living together for around 10 months. When she first moved in, she insisted on paying rent, and I was reluctant to charge her if it didn't work out, but she forced it and paid a month. Then I found out she's struggling for money, unable to pay for things, is in a lot of debt and lives month to month. She agreed with me that she'd start when she clears the debt. Fast forward to Christmas, I find out she's been stealing my clothes to give to her family as gifts, another post on here. She lied for 2 weeks, blaming me until I showed her footage of her taking the things from the camera in the living room, to watch the dog when I'm out. I later then discover through letters and texts I've seen appear on her phone she's been doing nothing to pay any of it off, so I confront her. She tells me and shows me messages that her mother and sisters constantly guilt trip her into giving them money and have for years. They'll message her on payday asking for it, and she feels bad saying no, despite none of them ever paying it back. Her mom alone owes her over £6,000. She has taken a ton of loans out for her family and they leave her with the debt and don't pay it back. Luckily her credit is now at the point where nobody will loan to her, but she still tries and does it for them. I also find out, I went through her finances, yes I shouldn't have, but something wasn't adding up and I was being lied to, that in the space of 20 minutes she spent £300 on gambling sites. All during this time she isn't paying a penny towards rent, bills, anything. She'll occasionally buy food shopping or trips out to Starbucks. I tell her enough is enough and she needs to start paying her way. If she can give handouts to her family and gamble, she can pay for where she lives, and she's taken me for a ride when she should have been saving and clearing debts. I make roughly 5x what she does, but I've been fair in that the bills are split proportionally to income. She'll earn £1,400 per month and pays £600, which includes rent and her share of the bills. I take on the rest, which is substantially more, but I believe it's not fair to take more. On the first of this month she tells me she can't pay rent. She says she's paid out too much on our trips to Starbucks, food shopping, and I'll get it when I get it, but she doesn't understand why I need it this month when she's lived for free the past 9 months anyway. I've asked her to explain where her money has exactly gone, but she tells me I'm controlling and it's none of my business. In fairness, she will pay when we go food shopping, but rarely in comparison to me. I've kicked her out as of yesterday and told her she needs to find somewhere to live. She is however pregnant, and she's using that card as a way to guilt trip me and make out I've thrown out her and my child onto the streets. In my opinion, she is taking me for a ride and prioritizing her family that is using her over her own family she's started. What's the solution here to getting her to see she's not treating me fairly? Update 2. I sat her down and gave her an ultimatum early last week. I explained to her that we are a family, and became a family when she decided to have a baby with me. I told her if we're going to stay together she's going to have to be a lot more open, contribute, and no more taking on debt she can't afford, which brings it to my door when she can't pay. I also told her I want to see her bank statements because I suspect she has a gambling problem and is in some serious debt. She agreed to all of this and committed to showing me the bank statements when I ask, and says going forward she'll pay towards bills. I believe she's turned a corner and start ting along with her better, and she moves back in. As I was sat next to her phone last night when she went to grab a drink, her phone lit up with a text message. It read, "Loan accepted by ex-lender, click here to accept." I immediately called her out and she starts crying, telling me she has no money left again for the month and she's had to resort to payday loans for some money. I tell her she should have come to me and tell her I explicitly said no more loans. She also tells me she won't be able to afford to pay towards bills again. She works full-time and brings home around £1,400, £1,200 a month dependent on hours, but a lot of the time she phones sick, so gets sick pay, which is a lot less. I asked to see her bank statements and she refuses, telling me I'm being controlling by asking when she's told me and I don't need to see them. That's the last straw for me. I'm almost certain she's been giving it away at this point again, or gambling. I give her a scenario: your baby is starving and needs food and there's none in the house, what are you going to do? She replies, you'll have to pay. That's fine, I'll happily support my son, I tell her, because the mother is clearly a deadbeat. So I ask to see her Facebook Messenger to see if her family have been hitting her up for free money again, and conveniently all of the family members that borrow from her have the chats cleared. She says she deletes them to be tidy, yet mine's still there. I told her this isn't going to work and she tells me I'm a controlling freak basically, and she agrees, and I've not heard from her since. Moral of the story is she's too damaged from her upbringing, I'm guessing, and some people you just can't change. She still messages me asking how I am, but I'm just ignoring her except from anything baby related. I need to move on. I know a lot of people question whether she's pregnant, how stupid I was to get her pregnant, I agree, and if it's mine. I've been to every scan so I know she's pregnant. As for if it's mine, I've never suspected cheating, but she's a serial liar, so I will be forcing a DNA test through the courts. I posted on a couple of different subs to make sure I wasn't getting biased opinions. The above story is 100% true. I wish it wasn't, believe me, but my focus is now getting as far away as possible from her for my own sake. Oop, yes. I really can't imagine that child having any sort of life as she continues down this path. Update 3. After a couple of weeks or learning she was sleeping around on family members or friends' sofas, I allowed her back into the house given that she is pregnant. Around a month ago. Out of concern for the baby, really, given she's now 8 months pregnant. Stupid on my part, and I'm now going to explain why I regret it. I've recently moved house, a couple of months ago, and she was involved in the packaging and unpacking whilst I was out. Mainly unpacking. I had a pretty large stack of cash in the drawer of a cabinet in living room. Around 400 to 500 pounds. This was a Christmas gift from my parents. During this time I also sold a lot of old furniture, including a sofa, which she begged and begged for me to sell it to her mother. I begrudgingly accepted this. She told me her mother had asked to borrow the money from her repeatedly to buy it from me and asked if she could pay a couple of weeks after she took it. No biggie, that's fine, I tell her. Her mother collects the sofa, giving me 100 pounds cash initially and tells me the rest will be with me in a week. A week comes round and she tells me it'll be next month, but she's not happy as it's collapsed and I need to come take a look. I tell her it was fine when she collected it and I'm not taking a look. Basically, if you don't want it, I'll collect it and sell it to someone who wants to pay. She tells me I'm not welcome in their house. My girlfriend, ex, told her there was nothing wrong with the sofa at all when it was collected, and her mother tells her she's also not welcome. My ex then flips it onto me, telling me I'm controlling and she didn't need to get involved to fall out with her family. I didn't make her, but I told her it showed where her priorities lie when she's defending them and not wanting to get involved over them screwing me over. It was left at that. Back to the money. I went to see where the money went and searched the entire house. It's not there, but everything that was unpacked was there. Even pointless shit like a blown light bulb was packed and unpacked. I ask her where the money is and she immediately gets defensive. Tells me it's somewhere, and immediately I think this is all the same answers as last time. It then dawned on me that the money I was gifted was in £10 notes and the money I was part paid for my sofa was also in £10 notes, so my suspicion is she stole my money for her to hand to her mother to pay me. I've basically paid myself minus what been taken. I confronted her and she replied, even if I did admit it to try and sort things, I don't care about you anymore anyway, so I don't need to. Probably makes sense why she was trying to take a loan out roughly the same time she would have taken the money. So there we have it. I let her stop for a while and this is where it's landed me. Her stealing again. Whilst I have no solid proof whatsoever, it could only be her that took it, and if everything else got unpacked then she certainly took it. She's now threatening to out me to people for who I really am, a victim of theft I guess? And she'll tell everyone how awful I am and not to bother contacting her. I've thrown her back out again for the very last time and I'm just relieved. Not sad at all. Whilst I have no proof, her reaction is all the proof I need. Now I'm forcing a DNA test at birth and will fight to make sure no child of mine is brought up in a family like hers. She is poison. People like her don't change. They just take more. Now on to second story. Received a message from my half-brothers who want to reconnect, and now I face the choice of revealing our stepdad's horrors or not. I'm a 21-year-old male. I ended up in foster care at 9 years old because of the abuse I suffered at the hands of my stepfather, a man my mum kept choosing over me. Despite all the support and interventions that were supposed to protect me, my mum refused to kick him out. Even after she had a restraining order against him, she still let him back into our lives. Meanwhile, she went on to have 2 more children with this man, my half-brothers, who are now 19, Richie, and 16, James. It got to the point where it was obvious that no matter what she would keep letting him back into our lives and allowing me to be a scapegoat of anything that was wrong in life, and I ended up being removed. After I was removed from the home, my mum was allowed to keep and raise my brothers, as if nothing had happened. From what I know, my stepdad never laid a hand on them. My mum and this man are still together, I know because I've checked her Facebook more times than I'd like to admit. Growing up, it was devastating to realize that my mum would rather give me up than fight for me. She could have kept me if she'd just left him, but she didn't. This abandonment left me with deep scars and a lot of issues to deal with as I grew up. It didn't help that she cut off all contact with me almost as soon as I was placed in foster care. She wouldn't even show up for court-ordered visits. Foster care was also really rough for me. I bounced around 3 different families, and it wasn't until the last one that I got any therapy to help me make sense of what had happened. A few days ago, out of nowhere, I got a Facebook message from my Richie and James. They said they've been thinking about me a lot and want to get to know me. They even mentioned that our mum talks about me sometimes and wonders how I'm doing. They said he'd like to start some kind of relationship if I'm open to it. And Richie said he would be willing to drive him and James to come and visit me wherever I am in the country. They both seemed nice in this message, and I don't have an issue with either of them. At first, I was going to ignore the message because I don't want anything to do with my biological family. But then a darker thought crossed my mind: this could be my one and only chance to expose my stepdad for the monster he truly is. I could finally tell my half-brothers everything he did to me, everything he put me through, and let the truth come crashing down on them. I know that if I do this, it'll probably destroy any chance of having a relationship with them, but honestly, I'm not sure I want one anyway. I told my friend that I was thinking about doing this, and he said it's a really bad idea that won't accomplish anything I want it to. He said it will most likely just cause them to think I'm bitter and mean and won't make them have any issues with their dad. But, while I know it would be a difficult thing to process, I would want to know if my dad was like that. I would want to know the truth about how my dad treated other children. I don't know how much they know about why I was removed into care. Update 1. So, after thinking a lot about what everyone said and after having a session with my therapist, I realized that my initial plan to tell my brothers everything about my stepdad wasn't really about helping them. It was more about me still holding on to the anger and hurt from my past, and that's not fair to them. A lot of you pointed out that they probably don't know the full story and are innocent in all this. And honestly, that hit hard. I decided to reach out to my Richie brother and told him I'd like to meet up. I didn't mention anything about our mom or the stepdad situation. I figured if we were going to start a relationship, it's better to take things slow and not dump all that heavy stuff on them right away. We ended up meeting at a cafe. I was super nervous, but when I saw them, it actually felt nice. Why we're both really nice, and we just talked about normal stuff, like what we've been up to, our favorite football teams, that sort of thing. It was weirdly easy to chat with them. At one point, James asked why I was placed in foster care. That caught me off guard, but I decided to keep it vague and just said that things were complicated at home back then, and that going into care was what was best for me at the time. James started pushing a bit for more details, but the Richie told him to knock it off, which honestly was a relief. By the end of it, I was glad I went. They asked if we could stay in touch, and I said yes. I'm still figuring out how much to share about what happened, but for now, I'm just trying to focus on building a relationship with them. I realize that while the past is important, it doesn't have to dictate how things go with them now. So yeah, thanks again to everyone who helped me see things clearer. I'm feeling a lot more hopeful about this, and I'm really glad I didn't just go with my gut reaction to tell them everything right off the bat. We'll see where things go from here, but I'm cautiously optimistic. Before anything, I read a lot of your comments. So many were saying I was selfish for wanting to expose my stepdad, and then so many were saying I was a coward for not. Some people were saying I was allowing the abuser to get away with it by not telling my brothers. I had DMs calling me an abuse apologist. People calling me a liar for not answering the question James asked when we first met. I never said I wasn't ever going to talk to them about my past. Literally in my last post I said I was still working on sharing my past in a healthy way. With help from my therapist, and yet I had people acting like they knew best and that I should just tell them both right away. So many people arguing about it one way or the other. It does seem like everything I do there will be issues. I will upset someone. I know that, and I am trying to navigate this in my own way, so please be respectful of that. Even if you would have done it a different way. I am in no way letting SD get away with the abuse. I tried everything I could as a child/teen to get him prosecuted. I have accepted that will never happen. Just know I am a real person who reads the comments. Not everything I do is perfect. But please just be kind. I don't say this to stop people from giving me advice. I love advice. Just be positive and kind. I don't need more negativity anyway. In the week since my last post I have met up with my brothers 3 more times. Once with both, and 2 times it has been just me and Richie. There seems to have been an instant bond between us, something that I didn't even know I wanted. I am loving hanging out with them, which is amazing because I didn't even think I ever wanted to see any of my family again. Never mind start to develop a good relationship with some of them. When I last met up with Richie alone, we went to go see a movie and then get something to eat. We spoke about our plans and what he does now. And we got talking about me, and foster care. I asked him what he had been told about me growing up. He said they haven't been told much, but that mom sometimes talks about me. I asked him what he remembered of me and why I was taken into care. He said he has some memories, fuzzy memories and clear memories. But he said he didn't know for certain what happened. He said he remembered a lot of fighting and arguing between me and SD. He said he had one very clear memory of me, but said he didn't know whether it was appropriate for him to share it or not. He asked me what I remembered, and I said it was difficult for me to talk about with people. He said he understood if I didn't want to get into it. I asked him what his clear memory was. He remembered me being about 8 years old, my SD stripping me naked and putting me in a dog's collar and making me eat dog food. He said he remembered his dad hitting me with his belt as I was eating out the dog bowl and crying. This actually happened many times for me growing up, but he said he only remembered it once. I started crying and he apologized for bringing it up, and I said don't. I was glad he at least remembered some things of my abuse. He said he guessed that the abuse by SD was the reason I was taken away. I said yeah. I asked if SD ever abused either of them and he said he hadn't ever. But he said he wasn't close to either my mom or his dad. He said they weren't ever amazingly loving people, but never abused them. He said he was sorry again. We spoke some more about our childhood. I felt safer talking about the abuse since he already remembered some of it. We spoke a bit more about it. I tried answering questions he had and he answered some of mine. He asked if the trauma still impacts me now, and I said yeah. I was open with him that I've attempted to end my own life multiple times because of it. He apologized for not being there for me, for not sticking up for me. I said nothing that happened was his fault, or my fault, and that we can't change the past. After we finished, we both went to our own homes. He messaged me saying he's glad I grew up and that I managed to keep living. He meant it sweetly, I think, even though it came off a little weird. I feel really amazing that I have a brother who seems to care about me. I couldn't even have imagined he would have liked me a few weeks ago.